Hello and welcome to the Mysticast, where you join me, Jack Stafford, a student of metaphysics, as I talk to a variety of guests to better understand the teachings given by the Masters through the Aetherius Society, the new cosmic religion for the Aquarian Age, incorporating all yogas, Christian mysticism, theosophy, UFOs, and much, much more. Please note that this is an independent program, not produced or fact-checked by the Aetherius Society. Today, my guest is Lisa Rosser of the Aetherius Society in Los Angeles. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Jack. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's wonderful to have you. I mean, I met you when you were in England because you've been around the world. You're from New Zealand.
Well, I'm from Michigan,
Sorry,
the Michigan branch, yeah,
right.
and then New Zealand, then London, and now Los Angeles,
All of them. Is there a branch you haven't visited yet?
except Africa. I've not been to Africa yet, but I'd love to go and visit the members and friends over there as well. That would be
Okay.
wonderful.
Well,
Eventually.
maybe we could just kick things off by talking a bit about yourself. So you're from Michigan. Did you join the Michigan branch? Is that what you heard about the society?
Yes, that's correct. So I first heard about the Aetherius Society when I was in Michigan through the Michigan branch. It was right after the Fukushima incident, and a friend of mine was on the email list, and the Michigan branch was having a special prayer circle to help with the aftermath. And so that was the first time I came, and it was all very new and strange to me.
Hmm.
I had not been in a room with people chanting mantra before, and so I was a bit but I do remember having my hands up in a prayer, and I felt like I couldn't push kind of in, like it just kind of felt like there was something here. And so, yeah, so I joined up there, and then I met my
So
husband.
that was a funny thing, isn't it? That was what convinced you could, because it is a weird road to go around. A weird
Yeah,
road to go because it's, as I said, it's Christian mysticism combined with UFOs and mantra. It's a
yeah,
weird mix, no? I mean, it's
it is too. And a lot of people have kind of a aha moment.
yeah, yeah.
Where they but I don't. Like, I feel like I just, I thought it was different, and I came from a Catholic background, so it was very different from what I was used to, but I it felt nice, I guess, and the
Mm,
people were nice, and I just kept coming, and I remember, like, listening to the 12 Blessings, and I knew it was Dr. King talking, but his voice was different, and I didn't understand why, and so I thought that was kind of strange. Um, how the prayers were structured, sometimes I was a bit kinda confused about, but and I had personally had a difficult time with the UFO aspect,
oh,
'cause
yeah?
I believed life on other planets was probable,
Yeah, yeah.
but, I guess in terms of them being cosmic beings who are spiritual and helping us, that was quite a jump for me. And then some of the things that I really loved about Catholicism, I think it's like a past life thing. I've been a Catholic for many years, and I had to kind of realize that some of the things there are that were very meaningful to me were not metaphysically correct, and I had to kinda let them go, and, um
Like what?
well, like the crucifix, for example,
Oh, yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's strange to say now, but that was very meaningful to me,
Mm,
and, recognizing what Jesus has done for us and how it was like, remembering his sacrifice,
mm,
but it's obviously a black magic sort of thing,
mm.
and I feel
'Cause the difference
silly
the difference between a crucifix and a cross is that there's actually a
of
model of
Jesus
Christ.
on there. Yeah.
Right.
So the cross is a beautiful symbol.
Okay.
Having Jesus crucified on the cross and worshiping that is a a black magic sort of, that's my understanding anyway,
Mhm.
and that does kind of make sense. The cross is a beautiful thing, and to be but that was difficult for me because it meant something very different to me as a Catholic, but, it does make logical sense, as that's kind of the thing with the teachings, is it might feel like a gap or a jump or a leap to understand something, but, it is rooted in logic when you think about it enough.
Yeah, like the prayer mudra, pushing your hands together is a Hindu
Totally.
practice for keeping energy in the body. So
Yeah,
it makes sense to me that if the dark forces wanted to subverse the effects of prayer, getting people to put their hands together is a pretty damn good way
exactly. Yeah.
limiting.
And covering the heart chakra as well.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, of
Yeah.
course. So it makes sense. That's what I didn't have an aha moment with the society either. It was just pure logic, and maybe I'd have been on the other realms. I'd had
Yeah.
what was one of the
Yeah.
millions of people who Dr. King. So I didn't
Yeah.
have. I don't, it's just a logic that appears to me. I haven't had an aha moment or um. So that, but then you met Julian, is that right?
Yep. So, I met Julian, my husband, on a pilgrimage, actually. And when we got married, we moved to the New Zealand branch. Well, he was already there. I just tagged along. And then we wanted to be at a headquarters. So, excuse me. So we moved to first the London headquarters, knowing that we were just going to be there for a few years. And then we moved here to Los Angeles last year.
Mhm. Yeah, you were supposed to go because COVID hit, didn't it? And you had an
Yeah.
extended stay.
I think we went to London just for COVID.
Mm,
That's kind of what it seems like because we arrived about 6 months before everything kinda kicked off there, and then right when really everything cleared up, we moved on. So we
yeah.
were meant to be there for about 2.5 years. That was the 2 years was the original plan, but it ended up being about 3.5. So,
Mm. So you've really, devoting your life to this as a staff member now and uh, as full time. Uh,
yep, full time. I love it. I've I've just I wanna live and breathe the Aetherius Society.
mm,
And, there's kind of a no bad day of work sort of thing 'cause, I've had that previously where it it's I really feel for everybody working jobs because not everybody's job is a job of service.
yeah.
And I felt that way. I mean, a lot of jobs are. And if you look at it in the right way, almost every job is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I struggled with that because we were in COVID, so everybody's working from home,
Hmm.
and Julian was working full-time for the Aetherius Society, and I had a very good job in IT, and I loved my team. I had a good people to work with, but in terms of what the job did, I didn't feel like I was being of service.
Hmm.
I was, and I was teaching people to use different systems and doing the politics thing so the company could do well and then other people could do well. But it felt like a stretch to me. And it was just miserable every
Hmm.
day sitting there. So I asked my boss actually if I could go to part time so that I could spend more time helping my church. And they let me. And that was really lovely too. So
Okay.
yeah.
Are you still doing that, or you've stopped completely?
No, no, I stopped that when we moved.
Okay.
When we moved, I was able to come on full time. So I'm very, very grateful. Very
Okay.
grateful.
So I haven't spoken to you since you got to LA. So has it lived up to expectations?
Yeah, well, it's been I mean, the thing is, what I have learned about the Aetherius Society is that wherever you go, you have a family, and the people are just the most wonderful, kind. I mean, the generosity that we experienced everywhere, it's overwhelming.
Mm.
I remember a good example of it and how things kind of work out when you're doing something with a spiritual motive. When Julie and I first arrived in London, we got off the tube and we were waiting for Valerie to come pick us up because we were staying with her. And as we were waiting outside the tube, we saw Noemi walking by and she offered to help us with our bags. And as we were talking to Noemi, waiting for Valerie, Min drove by with her car and put our heavier bags in our car. And it just so everybody just jumped right in to help. And it's kind of seems like that's the same vibe throughout the society. Other people just want to help.
Mm. And so what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? What's a typical day look like?
Every day is different, which is really exciting in itself. But mostly right now, what I'm working on is working on archival projects. So I make sure that everything the master has said, everything other people have said, that we have it digitized, that we're getting everything kind of edited and cleaned up so that we can get more stuff online. And so I spend quite a bit of time doing that, and which is a great job, right? Because you get to listen to the master all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Because when I joined the society, I'm like, why aren't there more teachings available? When you join a new member, you ask, you're kind of critical when you we understand everything. And I was thinking, why isn't it all available? And if it's so true, but it's just there's basically not enough people to.
There's not enough people and there's so much information to get
Yeah.
through. Yeah. Yeah. But it is great. I think more and more stuff is becoming available and um it's just because I feel like everything I've ever heard Dr. King say or any of the Cosmic Masters, you could listen to it 6 times and get something different out of it. It's just like
Yeah.
rereading any of the books. It's depending on the time in your life and what you're going through. It just you get something really helpful out of it.
Yeah, that's really true. I found that I'm helping with the Audio Cloud project, which is to get all following up from what you're doing, or to get it all in like a Spotify style service, a cloud where people can pay a subscription and
Yeah.
then listen to all these because there are how many 600 transmissions or
It's over 600 transmissions. Yeah.
that's directly from a cosmic master
Yeah.
through Dr. King recorded. And then there's and then he did addresses every Sunday for like 20 minutes
Yeah.
for
And
40
then all the
years
lectures.
and all the lectures as well.
Yep.
So, so that's a lot of.
Yeah. And interviews. We've got a lot of his
Okay,
interview. I mean, I'm
right.
not sure if those will be on the cloud, but interviews with Dr. King and with his close followers. And um, yeah, there's just so much. His commentary on things. You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Wow. No, but it's a joy to have it. I'm really delighted, and I'm also learning a lot from being involved, reading it.
Yeah.
I
It's
should have to pay to do
I know. I
it.
know, right?
Yeah,
I feel the same way.
yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like my consciousness rising because of we're all exposed to these. We're all listening to podcasts. We all listen to watch YouTube. We get things, but just the quality of the teachings is so much beyond
Yeah.
anything elsewhere.
I know what you mean. And I also feel like kind of the more you listen to things, the more you kind of keep yourself in this higher kind of vibration.
Mm.
The kind of stuff you see on the news just is extremely disinteresting.
Mm.
Like, it's important to keep up with world events, but for me personally, like the more I um, got into the teachings, the less like interested in politics I was.
Mm.
I mean, I like to know what's happening, but
Yeah,
the games, I'm just completely uninterested in.
yeah.
It's easy to not have a political party because I mean they're all politicians.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you just what happens happens and everything else is kind of a TV show, isn't it?
Yeah. But also, you're reading about it and you're writing about it. I was reading your blog articles on the Aetherius website, which are really great. And what
Oh,
I
thank
most like to hear is people like Richard and Mark as well names spring to mind in that they spend a lot of time studying these. Also, I get Michael and Paul in
you.
America.
Yeah.
And then they make an address about something. They've made a connection between just because they're studying it and there's so much.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean,
They're
that's
so
really
brilliant. I love it because it just helps you look at something in a different way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
They're quite brilliant. I agree. Yeah.
and you've had insights as well about things you've been when you've been reading through and you felt compelled to write about. I mean, which of your articles spring to mind about?
Well, I don't know that I have insight so much as I just regurgitate what's already there.
Wow,
But I think my personal favorite blog, that I wrote was 3 Nights in the Afterlife.
that's a
Um,
great one. Yeah.
I really enjoyed that one because I originally got an idea I wanted to know more about the lesser known communicators through Dr. King, because
Right.
there's quite a few, names that come up that we don't hear about often. Um, Mars Sector 9, for example. I wanna know more about Mars Sector 9. I mean, I wanna
Right.
know more about Mars Sector 6. But I was intrigued by these kind of lesser known communicators.
Mm.
And in doing a bit of research about that, I realized that there were some terrestrial communicators who came through Dr. King. Cheng Fu, Master Saint Guleng, the 3 I mentioned in the blog were Sir Thomas Lipton, Sir James Young Simpson, and Sir Oliver Lodge. There's also Gray Fox. And I mean, there's quite a few terrestrial communicators that came through. And I chose these 3 in the blog because they were, it was easier to find information about their past lives.
Hmm.
So, for example, Gray Fox, you can't really Google gray fox. Not a
Is
lot
he
of
in the
stuff.
Great White Brotherhood? Is that?
I think he is in the Great White Brotherhood, and he would come through and he gave a lot of healing tips.
Is he like a North
Um,
American Indian?
that's my yeah,
Right.
yeah, and but because he didn't live in our industrial age,
Hmm.
it's not as easy to find information about him. Whereas these three were quite well known, and in researching them, I could kind of see how how they lived their lives came through in the afterlife because um, Sir Thomas Lipton, for example, was a boat enthusiast, and he was really active in the American Cup in sailing. And then when he came through in a transmission to Dr. King, he was giving advice about which boat to buy. And he was comparing, because Dr. King at the time was looking at two different boats, and he was giving boating advice. And I thought, well, that's so interesting. So it's something that was passionate about in his life. And now he's helping in the afterlife kind of with the same thing. And I think that's a trend with all people. And I think it shows that it's important how we live our lives.
Right. That's the big skeleton in the closet for me is that no one gets and I still have trouble understanding is the different realms
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
right here between my hands where there's another realm that when you
I
die
know.
you go, but it's right here. But shouldn't it be more common knowledge and shouldn't it be?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if we were all as clairvoyant as we should be, we probably would have an easier time seeing it. But Dr. King explained it like a comb. You've got these combs, they take up the same amount of space, but you can interlock them. And that takes up the same space. So it's the same kind of space, but they're close together. And he said in one lecture, if I'm not mistaken, he said that if you could kind of see them, it would be kind of like taking a step, like a slight step up, and you would kind of be able to see them that way. So it's all very interesting, the realms. Yeah.
Are you able to do astral projection, or do you know people who are, or have you
I'm
able
not
to?
personally, no, no, I'm not able to. I think sometimes I wonder if when I dream, sometimes maybe I'm doing something, but I don't know for sure. Like I've
Have you?
had dreams where I'll wake up saying the 12 blessings or something like that, and so I wonder, oh, maybe I was doing something
Mm.
on another realm, but I don't know for sure. I'm
Have
just
you spoke?
hoping.
Have you ever spoken to anyone besides Dr. King who's able to do it? Or
Not me.
uh,
No, no, I haven't. Have you?
well, I know Nehemiah Davis. He can do it. He's
Oh,
from
can he? Oh, wow.
The Miami branch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because he was doing mantra at 3 years old, and his father was a yogi,
Really?
and yeah,
Oh,
he
well,
was
there you go.
yeah,
Well, it just shows you what we can do in this life. Huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
because that's really something. Because we chose free will over freedom a long time ago,
Mhm.
and there's no if you give up the free will completely, if you sit in Padmasana. I mean, if you go training down the gym, you do it every day, you're giving up free will in a way, aren't you? You're saying, I impose these restrictions on myself so that I can enjoy greater freedom, be able to lift these bigger things above my head. But if you sit in Padmasana and cross-legged and then do these exercises, you're giving up your free will, but then you get the freedom of being able to leave the
Mhm.
body, which is greater freedom than because imagine being able to go and see Sir Oliver Lodge and have a cup of coffee with him on his
Yeah,
boat now. You know,
exactly.
that's freedom, baby.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really good analogy you use. I guess we just have to our practices are spiritual weights that we just
Mm,
need to
right. I was actually listening to I googled Sir Oliver Lodge on YouTube just as an experiment a while ago to see if he'd come through any other communicators, and there was this medium called Leslie Flint who who has a recording of him as well, and I think he somehow conjured ectoplasm or something, and he got a voice through. Um,
Wow,
yeah, so
that's
that's
very
quite
nice. I'm
yeah.
not surprised about Sir Oliver Lodge because he was a really spiritual man, and he was very interested in life after death and talking to people who had passed on. So, because he lost his son in World War One,
Okay.
and after that, he became really interested in trying to communicate with them, and he wrote a book on spirituality. And I think it makes a lot of sense that he is kind of one of the communicators because he was so passionate about it in his life. And Dr. King had very held Sir Oliver Lodge in very high regard. He said he was several lives ahead of Einstein, and he was
Wow.
yeah, he said, if I'm not mistaken, what he said was, I've got the quote here actually. He has the most intellectual forehead that he's ever seen.
I'm looking at a photo, and that is an infinite forehead. Yeah.
Yeah, a really brilliant man. And also, I think it's interesting. He was very well known in his day and not afraid to say that he believed in life after death and spirituality and mystics talking to beings on other realms. Because Harry Houdini was kind of a relative temporary to him. And he kind of made a living kind of debunking a lot of this. And a lot of other people did as well. They like to kind of show that it was a sham. And I
Mhm.
think it was very brave of Sir Oliver Lodge to say, no, I believe in this and I'm going to write a book about it. And given his science background as well, I think he could see how things were tied in quite closely together. Yeah.
Well, it makes me feel better about my receding hairline, knowing that grow on with greater and greater wisdom. Every lecturer is another follicle.
It's funny you say that because in the practices of Aetherius, you know about the charged water practice.
Yeah.
Well, in the practices of Aetherius, he talks about how to charge water and then rub it into your scalp. So there you
Ah,
go. And that if you're worried about it, that's something you can do.
okay, well, I might try that. Yeah, I heard about some members who it grew back, and I must try that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
not that there's anything wrong with that,
No, there's not
but it does
anything
keep
wrong
your
with
head
that.
warm. I've noticed
It
when I
just
did
keeps your
cut
head
it.
warm. Yeah, well, that's what I like. It keeps the sun off my neck.
Yeah, where you are, you have a different problem.
Yeah, Los Angeles is a bit different, yeah.
But all these, so these are like 19th century. They were alive in their last life in the 19th century,
That's
and
right, yeah, yeah,
and there
and
was a
they're really helpful in the Aetherius Society, like, Sir Oliver Lodge and Sir James Young Simpson tried to bring Operation Prayer Power to level -1, and that's amazing. I mean, I just think that's the most incredible thing that I think it's wonderful. It doesn't surprise me that people are trying to bring prayer power to level -1, but that it's people we can point a picture to
yeah.
and kinda say, "This person is doing that." It's very interesting.
It certainly means we should pick up our act on the physical because
Yeah,
yeah, they get ahead of us. I
yeah,
think
what
it's
you did in this
embarrassing.
life matters in your next
It's
and
embarrassing if
the
they get ahead
afterlife.
of us on the lower realm.
Yeah.
But because yeah, they were we seem to forget about science in the 19th century, and that there was a lot of like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and those very respected people.
Mm,
Where there was that psychic research in London, that site center, and it was a big thing. It went hand in hand with science at that time, and somehow they've people poo-poo all of those scientists at that time. They weren't, but these are obviously brilliant men, and
really real thinkers.
yeah,
It's what
yeah.
happens when we get TV. We're not thinkers anymore, right?
Mm. But do you think it's been so it's a strategy of the dark forces to deliberately push down this knowledge, or it's just
I'm sure that the dark forces are very cleverly trying to withhold information from us or keep information from us, distract us to pay attention to other things. I'm sure about that. Um, and I think that's why it's quite difficult to be on a spiritual path. You have to, because I think the dark forces are very clever at what they do, and I think a lot of us can get distracted by things when we shouldn't without meaning to. Like me, for example, I wrongly thought about the crucifix as something really good. So we're just human. We don't none of us are perfect. But I think the more we focus on the higher thoughts and the teachings and just helping other people, the less and less that we will be affected by that.
yeah.
The more
You know,
we can protect ourselves.
that's something important to this. I didn't know about the teachings. Is that also there was in the ancient Eastern teachings about this because in the West we're obsessed with the East-West mind, the left and right brain hemisphere, which kind of is another it obscures the truth of our North-South aspect. We have a higher self and a lower self, and
Mm.
we're this idiot in the middle. And but that's funny, isn't it? Because if I think about that, I kind of understand that that's my conscious mind, and I'm not worried about so much about I'm more trying to be the higher self, no?
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, um, it's not always easy to understand what your higher self is saying, but I feel like the more and more that we do it, the more we make the right choices, the easier it becomes. And kind of like the more you listen to your intuition, the stronger the feedback you get is, and the more you can. But we're all just still learning. Got a long way to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, for sure. But another thing you wrote about on the websites is about in your blog articles is about the animals, pets, adepts
Yeah.
and the animals. So that's another thing on they do on the other realms is, and that's actually the adepts that helped set it up was helping the animals when they pass over.
Yeah, so that's what happened was, an animal, here in the American headquarters, passed away unexpectedly, and, um, the owner was very upset about it, and so Dr. King contacted the adepts, and they not only they found the animal who had passed away, and they performed some sort of auric surgery on it so that it wouldn't have to live future lives with any kind of scars or anything. And out of that, and I think this shows the level of the adepts. They don't just fix a problem. They set something up so that if that problem ever happens again, there's a way to fix it. And so they set up this animal hospital on the other realms where these volunteers come and they help perform this auric surgery for any animals who die from any kind of violent means. Um and as I recall, they had over 100 organizers because they had so many people come and volunteer to help um, do this surgery on these animals. And I think that's just lovely. And I think it shows too, because Dr. King was also a big fan of plants and flowers, but he didn't like cut flowers. He said he loves flowers too much to cut them. And I think just this respect for all life really kind of comes out. But
Mm.
I think it's easy. Everybody loves animals, don't they?
Yeah, yeah. But that's amazing that these adepts who came here to, yeah, to transmute the most evil forces had time to work
Yeah.
to work
Yeah,
on a pet
in their
hospital.
spare time, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's also I think about this a lot, actually. Dr. King came as adept number 1, and that was his mission, was to transmute these dark forces because we're so helpless. But on the side, he created Operation Prayer Power,
Mm.
Operation Sunbeam, he performed Operation Starlight, the Saturn mission, he created a church, he wrote all these books. This is in his spare time. Really puts us all to shame when you work an 8-hour day and you feel
Mm.
knackered and you gotta go home and watch TV.
It is, it's staggering, and I have more appreciation the more I listen for it because there's all these long lectures about each of the phases of a Saturn mission. There's a lecture about getting the boat to there to do the Saturn mission. It's not just there's so much information about all of these missions. So, what do you say to people who, when you've just given off these listed off these missions, but people say there's no evidence for it? I mean, it could just be people, crazy people involved in this cult.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think if anybody, I think that's an easy thing to say,
Yeah.
but and I think it's important to use your discrimination. The masters tell us it's important to use our discrimination, but I think if anybody does take the time to research something properly, um, it does make sense. There is logic, and I think it's not possible to read all about Operation Sunbeam, everything there is, to sit and think about it and not believe it.
Mm.
I think then you're just kind of fighting with yourself. But I think when you read or you hear truth within you, and it's just not possible to read these, in my opinion, and um, not believe them
Yeah.
deep within.
And also, he's either the most brilliant medium or the most brilliant man because to make all this stuff, I mean, it's a lot more.
Yeah,
It's like if you did make all this stuff up, it's a lot and just to keep it secret or to basically to only tell. I mean, I don't have a couple of thousand members or whatever.
yeah.
It's kind of like, yeah, I mean,
You have to be impressed either way.
yeah, you have to be. It's because people get impressed when they find like a forgotten artist, and then you go into his room, and you know the story. I think there was one in LA actually, or some, I can't remember, a documentary about it, some Soviets or some Czechoslovakian artist who went over and he was forgotten, and they did loads of amazing work, and then you get discovered after your lifetime, and you're such a prolific artist, and you had this, but such a, if Dr. King had such a prolific imagination as to imagine all of this,
Mm.
then it's even that is worth a look. No, it's worth.
Well, also, and if that was the case, surely he would have used it for monetary value if it was all fake. I mean,
Yeah,
why would you live a whole life in a lie if
yeah.
you're not getting anything from it?
So
Um,
it's harder to believe like that because you would
mm,
want other people to. And if you come up with all this stuff, you want the mind that comes up with that wants recognition. It wants
that's
to.
right, yeah, and he said many times that he could have been really rich and famous, but what he had to say wasn't popular
Mhm.
because he was saying the truth, and I think that's really evident, really.
But he was on TV. I mean, he has seen
Oh,
millions
yeah.
of people. It's
He
not
did
as if he's.
so much interviews and publicity and people were not kind to him, and I think he handled it all exceptionally well, calm, brilliant,
Mm,
knowledgeable, even when there were kind of people trying to egg him on.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's
But
one
I
of the reasons.
listened the oth Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go you please.
Well, you were talking about how he kind of his whole life was like this, and I was listening to a mental transmission the other day that he gave, um, or that he received about a year before he passed, and it really struck me um, how his voice sounded. He sounded unwell, and he was, I think, recovering from surgery, so it's fair enough. But I just thought I thought about that exact thing at the time, like how real it is, because he's recovering. He's not a 40-year-old fit man. He's in his late 70s, recovering from surgery. He sounds poorly, but he's taking a mental transmission.
Mhm.
He just never stopped this kind of work that he does. It was really impressive. It was very inspiring to hear.
That's why I think also the audio cloud is such an important project, because someone that comes to the new to the society, maybe they drift in and drift out. They get, you dive in and you look at the headlines as you see on the website, Jesus, UFO.
Mm.
Maybe you get turned off, but if you, it's not now, if you can just go in and access all these teachings, and they're all kind of grouped together, and there's more research function, you could, you start to, you, if you're able to discern and the truth resonates, then it's much easier to just, you can get sucked in and get away from the pools of the materialistic communications.
Yeah, you can dive right in, and
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. I feel like when the cloud is launched, we're all gonna sit at home for weeks just listening to all this, like nothing's gonna get done.
Also because I was actually messaging Ashima about an article, again trying to get an article in there's this Australian magazine called New Dawn, and I read that sometimes, and I've read other occult books like Gary Lachman and things like that, and there's just nowhere in any of these occult things is there a mention of the society. It's not known by the occults, and so I think we need to get it known by the occult before you can get it into the mainstream. Like people, if people in the know are not knowing about it, people are
That's right,
interested.
yeah. That's part of spreading the teachings, and I think that's a good point because we're so small, it's easy to not take us seriously, um, whereas Theosophy, for example, is very well known.
Yeah,
Rosicrucianism is very well known. Um,
Gnostics.
the Yeah, that's right, the Self-Realization Fellowship, and we are on par with these, and because everybody has a different path, and it's not, it doesn't have to be the Aetherius Society, although I think it's the best way. Um, but I think because we're small, we're not taken in the same step as these, and that's a shame, but I think that will change, and it will change, it has to change.
Yeah,
Mm.
but I just think you get one of these passionate people who are writing all these articles, and if one of them is a just broadcasting all the time, if they can, because they know all the cross references for all the other occult um, stuff, because it's like everything, you have to talk their language. If you're going to be a
Yeah.
botanist, if you want to get your theories about the clover leaf you know what you need to be. You need to have gone to the University of Botany and be able to talk their language. And I think also to get into the occult world, they need. I mean, was it in the past? Did was this when Dr. King was alive? Was it much more known, or was it?
Well, Dr. King says that millions of people have heard about the Aetherius Society, and I think that's probably equally true today with online worlds. So many people can access either something from us or something about Dr. King elsewhere, or something about, especially with UFOs so prevalent. We're the oldest UFO international UFO organization in the world. And so I think millions of people have heard about the Aetherius Society. I think it's more just about reaching people in a way that catches their attention and makes them kind of realize that there is an inner prompting to have a spiritual life
Mm,
instead of it's so easy to get distracted with um and not distracted in like a negative way, but have our focus like be on our family or on our career, or
yeah.
perhaps we have poor health and we need to focus on that, or we have a favorite sports team that takes up our life. These things are important to people, and spirituality, I think, isn't always top of the list. In fact, very frequently it isn't the top of the list. And unfortunately, kind of organized religion has a negative connotation in a lot of places now. And so when you say spirituality, a lot of people think airy fairy, kind of hippies, but it's much more profound than that. And I think it's not always easy to have people recognize that with everything that we have going on in our day to day lives.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just wondering how to what that connection is because I know
Mm,
like just example, I just told you I come back from the doctor with my child who went for
mm.
homeopathy and you go to get diagnosis from the local doctor and then you can call up a homeopathic doctor in Napoli who's a specialist pediatrician. So you don't tell him you're not taking the medicine that he
Yeah.
prescribes these very strong steroids for a 6-month-old baby.
Mm.
Not a good idea. So but then so you come back, you're driving back and we call my girlfriend's sister and say because he's really improved on the homeopathic medicine, like a
Good,
dramatic improvement. Yeah, he said it was a
great.
hospital case and then it's really improved just from these medicines. So we're
Gosh,
really
that's so scary. I'm glad he's getting better.
yeah, he is, but we were really convinced now because
Yeah.
it's really worked. So we're saying my girlfriend was calling up her sister on the way back and saying, why don't you try it? Because you're giving all these, she's really into the Western medicine. So why don't why don't you try it? Because this homeopathy, at the very least, you think it's a sugar pill.
Yeah.
Yes. But she was worried. Well, she said, well, there may be some side effects. You know, hasn't been researched. And, I mean, the side effects to the steroids and the antibiotics are pretty clear. I mean, you just got to go one Google
Yeah.
search will tell you there are some side effects.
I think
Um,
sometimes, like, it's a bit too easy. Like, I remember, reading about I mentioned the charged water practice.
mm,
A lot of people suffer from anxiety these days,
mm,
and, um, there's a lot to be anxious about. I get it, but the charged water practice can help with, anxiety. And I had somebody in my life one time who, um was on anti-anxiety medication and they wanted to get off. And I suggested the charged water practice. I'm not a doctor, but that's something that they say can help. And all you're doing is drinking water. You charge the water, you drink it. And I think for this person, it was kind of too easy of a solution.
mm,
Oh, well, I just put the water in the sun for however long and then drink it. That's a bit too easy. I don't think that's going to work.
yeah.
But and it's the Native Americans kind of always thought that if there was something in nature that was bad for you, the cure was kind of something nearby. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think that we can be helped in an easy way without kind of I absolutely, I think if you need to see a doctor and see treated with Western medication or whatever, there's absolutely a place for that, and people need to kind of look after themselves in the way they feel right. But I think sometimes the easy way is the right way,
Mm.
not always.
But you just wonder how you can, because obviously we're fully paid up, but we bought and sold we've been inducted. No, we're completely convinced. So probably some people might watch this. Probably not got this far in the video, but unless they agree. But for better or for worse. So because I have this transmission behind me. I put it on the wall here, framed. This is the AUM transmission, which was
Ah.
a very early communicator, and I can't remember. It says you give your all your, okay. I'm trying to know whereabouts it is though. Um, he says I give you all your Christmases at once. There's somewhere in there about it. If I could open your mind, I could fully convince you to do this. Am I allowed to read part of it, or is it?
Well, you are.
I don't know where. I don't know where it says that most part. You should.
You've reminded me of the Jupiterians who, I think Mark wrote a blog about this, about how they just say rise. So it's kind of like the most common word that they say, like just kind of get out of your own way and rise up. And it sounds like what you're looking for is kind of them talking about if you could just see how easy it is to,
Yeah.
yeah.
What does he say? Just it. I have spoken in your tongue so that you may understand. I have spoken clearly so you may know. I have spoken deeply so that ye may act. Not only will you be mounting the chariot to your own salvation by the chant of the mighty AUM, but your families will rejoice and your ancestors will rejoice, no matter what plane they have their present resident upon. For this is verily the gateway to wisdom, bliss, knowledge, circumstantial mastery, and all.
Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah. He just says, chant the AUM as many times more as you can per day, and you will heal all. Chant the AUM as many times more again, as you can per day, and you will destroy your karma and cast it from you like a dirty, worn-out robe. Not only will your hands be as though covered with the oil of embalming to take away the pains of others, but you will know what you are. It's another example of it being so simple, no?
So simple. Yeah. Yeah. And and learning about the mantras as well, they change your environment around you. They change you. It is quite amazing, these spiritual practices, how potent and powerful they are.
Yes,
But how simple if we just make time for them.
yeah, just the sound. If we are all
Yeah.
vibration, and other mantras can supplement it, but none can take its place. And which you and I, in 25,000 years of experience, know that no other mantra but the repetition of the holiest and most sacred of all is really necessary. I give you then, AUM, my little children, and in giving you this, I give you the finest Christmas present you have ever had, or can ever have in this or the 59 dimensions above this. Only on the 60th dimension can you have anything to take its place.
Wow. Well, that's another question. What happens on the 60th dimension? What is the 60th dimension? Like every time you learn something, you've got like 6 more questions, right?
Yeah, I can't remember where he says it. Can't find that right exact quote, but he says something about would that I could make you understand this, you would sit down and starve and die, and then till you chant
Well,
it
that's
again.
what they say about the practice of the presence as well, is if you have to choose between eating and doing the practice of the presence, you should choose the practice of the presence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that if I could just open your brain, that was what I was trying to say. Is that
Yeah.
it's just if I could find the right quote, but anyway, if I could just open your brain and convince you of this one thing, you would transform. And that's what I'm saying. I'd like to say to people about the Aetherius Society. I've tried to say that to my girlfriend's not in it, and she lives with me, so I'm not very good at convincing people. But if I could just, and I've tried to, people have these, like homeopathy, they have these mental barriers because it's not part of their, you can't, someone, they said you can't, no, I think the master said you can't fill up a full glass. So once it's full, you can't,
That's right. Yeah.
can't anymore. But I told one friend, and for his example, and he said that, he was listening to, I make him listen to the lecture, and he said that, my baby there, he said that, the master said that drug addicts go to the other realms, and they go to the lowest realms because of their the way they behave.
Vibration.
Yeah, and because they've damaged their aura. It's someone said to me that another psychic that if you do a lot of drugs, sometimes you can blow a hole in the top of your aura so
Oh,
the
really?
entities come in.
Mm.
Yeah, which sounds logical, but then my friend was turned off the society and all of the teachings. It's like put all of it away just because of what the king said about that. Just because he didn't believe that a true loving teacher would say something like that. That
Yeah, well, this is what Dr. King was saying, that what he had to say wasn't popular, but that doesn't make it not true. Yeah.
yeah,
And
because
it is difficult because all of us we wouldn't be here if we weren't making bad decisions for many lives.
mm,
And I think that's where we can really learn a lot of compassion. We're all in this together. We're a giant group soul of people on the Mother Earth. And the none of us we're all very imperfect and different in a variety of ways at a variety of different levels. But Dr. King showing compassion to animals should show us that we can show compassion to other people. And where it is difficult, some of the teachings. And as I mentioned earlier, some of them were really difficult for me to get through as well. But it's easy and to read something you disagree with and then dismiss it and put it away and go back to what you were doing before. It's harder to recognize a barrier and try to get through it. And it is easier to take the road more traveled
yeah.
and just continue not living your life for service or being distracted by Premier League. I say that because I walk in every day and Paul talks about football, but Paul's an excellent spiritual warrior. So the healthy level of excitement about football.
But you could take the Englishman out of England, but you can't.
That's right.
Yeah, but I mean, he's my friend was quite discerning about it, and because there are many teachers who, he's like you say, they preaching love, and
Yeah.
that this is the right way. It's 'cause
Yeah.
it's easy to tell people what they want to hear. It's hard to say damage your aura. Your aura is a physical thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can damage it, and then you're going to be disfigured on the next life.
I think people think that about ashrams. Like you live in it, people live in an ashram and it's this lovely place to be. But Dr. King, it's hard work. And there's the story of the student who comes to the master and he asks to be a student. And the master takes his head and dunks it in a tub of
That's a
water.
good one.
You heard this one. I mean, that's doesn't seem very compassionate, does it? But,
Mm.
if anything, it's clear that with our lives of making the same bad decisions, we need to learn tough lessons. And kindness and compassion isn't always going to sink through to us. That's what, so that's why sometimes things have to hurt for us to learn a lesson because we're just apparently awfully thick and can't get it any other way.
Well, we're all on auto repeat.
Right.
I've learned from my mistakes, and I can repeat them perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Exactly.
But that's something from another great post of yours is about spiritual determination, and that's really
It's very
sometimes.
comforting. I really I mean, especially for me, the words of the Master Jesus, "I'll never leave you." And, like, I believe that because it's been 2,000 years, he hasn't left us. And I think one of the most powerful practices that we've ever been given for me, um, in terms of getting over ourselves and our lower selves is Dr. King talks about personal prayer. And the most important thing that you can do when you have this personal prayer is honesty, but then act upon where you kind of see your failings. And
All right, yeah.
it's one thing to recognize, like I know one of my fault. I am not a patient person, and that's a big. I just don't have that. I'm working on it, but I don't have it. And it's one thing to recognize that. It's another thing to kind of actively work on it because how do I work on patience? I'm not like more patient like that. I have to think of ways to actually make something better or easier. And it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to work on yourself.
Yeah, I've noticed that with going back to that, the higher self and the lower self, I've noticed that since I've been reading the teachings about, because you say when is, you could say when is the thought from a higher self and when is it from
Yeah.
my lower self or conscious mind? When do I know? You
Yeah.
know,
How do you
and I,
know?
yeah, how do you know? And I'm trying to watch that, and I notice that many things are from my lower mind when I'm tired. It's craving, or I have to do this, or those. It's not a nice feeling.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to learn.
I find that too, like, especially in winter, coming out in the evenings here to the church for a service or for Operation Prayer Power. It's cold, and I'm sitting at home under a blanket with my cat on my lap, and I've got a cup of tea, and
You
maybe
live
it's
in
raining.
LA. What are you?
Yeah.
I'm not getting.
It's what you're used to. It's cold right now. And, and I don't wanna go. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Maybe there's something I wanna watch on TV, or I kinda wanna read this book, and
Mm,
it's, but every time you move the cat off your lap and get up and go out, or every time you kind of recognize, as you were saying, that a thought is a lower self kind of thing, every time you do it, it's easier. You're
yeah,
making
yeah,
the water's going through this stream and it's getting deeper and more sure.
yeah. I've noticed the lower self wants to go, it wants a distraction. Must watch that Netflix, or must watch that, read that
Mhm.
book, or I need some candy or an alcohol, or
Yeah.
something to.
I'm too tired to do my practices.
Yeah, that's a
I
big
just
one.
want to sleep in a bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah, and the voice, you've got a good, gives you a good reason,
Mm.
or you're sitting down. You said you're going to do an hour's practice, and then you're the important reason,
Oh, I
eh,
forgot I gotta do my laundry. I've gotta get
which is
laundry
important,
done.
got to be done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that, but going back to Jesus, that's like pray a lot. We pray a lot for Jesus in the society, and it's not something you get from the mainstream religions as much,
Yeah.
I think. And if they believe just Jesus is the master, but where is he now? I mean, it's more like logical that if you believe in him, he's still alive somewhere. He's,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
where
Yeah. And
heaven. Yeah.
it's interesting too, because he says, "Where two of you are gather in my name, truly, truly, there shall I be." And if we're doing that all around the world, where is he? But it's obviously the essence of him is there. But I think it's so amazing that these cosmic masters, the way they help us, you take one step towards the gods and they'll take two steps towards you. And I really believe that. Like, I really believe that when you're trying your best and when you have a spiritual motive, some things do just kind of work out. And how that works out isn't always easy to see. I have an example of it in my personal life. We were talking earlier about how we move different countries, and it's a stressful thing to move. It's more stressful to move countries,
Mhm.
and one of the biggest stressors for me was, where are we going to live? Because we were moving with our cat,
Yeah,
and I
you have a
didn't
cat.
want her to have to be in a kennel. Where are we going to land where we can all kind of have a safe space right away? And each time that we moved, because we were moving with the motive of helping the Aetherius Society and progressing on our own spiritual path, um, that biggest concern for me worked out every single time.
Mm.
And it's not to say that the move wasn't difficult or anything like that, but it kind of really lifted a lot of stress off, just having that big thing kind of sorted out for me. And that was an example for me of how they help us. We're not left alone. So it's easier to have this kind of faith and resilience to keep on the path.
Well, you've certainly, because we're all wondering if we're doing the right thing. I mean, if we should if we should move to a center, near a center, or if we, even if we're not in the Aetherius Society, we're all looking for the meaning of life or the mission.
Yeah.
Am I doing the right thing? And I really envy you in that respect. You've gone full blast, and you're not gonna, when you do ask yourself in the halls of Saturn or whatever, the ultimate question, you, I think you've done well
Well, I could
with
do a
yourself.
lot better. I could definitely do a lot better.
Yeah, but you
It's
acted.
an ongoing struggle.
Yeah.
Everybody's on this path, and we all have, obviously, none of us are ascended yet. We've got a long way to go.
Mm.
But yeah, every day, if we can just try to get something right, I guess we're moving along.
What would you do if you met an ascended master? What would you say to them, or what would you ask them?
What would I say? Well, if I could meet anybody, as somebody asked recently, if you could meet anybody in the Aetherius Society, who would you meet? And I would meet Dr. George King.
Oh, yeah.
um, I think if I were to say anything to a cosmic master, I would say thank you. Um, I would want to, because I know the ways that they help us that we know of are amazing, and I know they do more than what we know of. And so I think I would just want to show appreciation for them, really. If
Would
I
you,
had one interaction with them, that's
okay.
what I would want to do.
Because you would want to ask alongside, like, how can I make the most difference? What?
Yeah.
Because like Dr. King said, if you could go to university and you could study to be a doctor. Oh, no, sorry. You could stay at home and look after an elderly relative. And I'm paraphrasing now. I don't know if he actually
Yeah.
said this. You could look after your cat or your dog or one person with love and care. Or you could go to university and you could be a doctor. And you
Mhm.
could help many people. Or you could go to university and study to become to make medicines or to come up
Yeah,
with a new treatment which could treat
that's right. Yeah.
millions of people. So, or you could, if the problem, all the problems of materialist society could be solved through spiritual motives.
Yeah. Well, I remember reading one time that Dr. King said, somebody asked him, "What's the best thing to do during a spiritual push?"
Right. Yeah.
And he said that he thought the best thing to do for during a spiritual push is to practice the 12 blessings. And I think this is a really good one because he said it early on in the Aetherius Society.
Like all
Obviously,
day. I mean, all day, every day, or
well, as much as possible. Like that's a way that no matter where you are, no matter how much time you have, you can find 10 or 15 minutes and you can make a real difference in the world. You won't see how you're like similar
Mm,
if you became a doctor and you create this wonderful, you can see the benefit that it would have in the world. But if you perform the 12 blessings, you don't necessarily see how you've helped, but you might be helping more. And
mm,
that act of faith, I think, is important as well. One day we'll find out the good we've done, but it's kind of a sacrifice now
mm.
that we don't have that immediate gratification of, oh, that's Jack, I've helped him.
Yeah.
And I think I think that was, if we can do nothing else, saying the 12 blessings is, I think, far more powerful than than we give it credit for, or at least certainly probably that I do.
Yeah, but maybe even better than reading the 12 Blessings is holding a service
That's
online,
right. Yeah,
and then so 100 people can join in with
exactly.
you.
Yeah. Well, the online services are so great because we get like 100 people all the time. Well, not
Yeah.
all the time, but you know what I mean? Like, it's wonderful to see. I mean, I think Darren is the one who created 12blessings.org, and like, what an amazing thing he's done there,
Yeah, so that's like
bringing hundreds of people together.
so maybe that's better than him doing the 12 Blessings during a spiritual push, is
Yep,
he's
fair
on
point. Yeah.
site.
Yeah.
So, and OPP is the Operation Prayer Power has been incorporated now into the cosmic plan, that, and if you're not participating
Incredible.
in that, you won't advance beyond a certain level.
That's right. Yeah. Interestingly, I was just reading that transmission the other day, and what I thought was interesting about that is the Master Aetherius said, "I have decided to accept it into the cosmic plan."
Oh, he
And
said
I
that
thought, well, that's very interesting because who's the Master Aetherius then? If
because we
he
don't
can
know.
decide,
Yeah,
it's all very interesting. Yeah.
because Mars Sector 6, he was a Lord of
Lord of
Karma,
Karma. Yeah.
but he was made one during the in the
That's right. He was made one during the Master's Day. But the Master Aetherius is very interesting because he's the um, the people who are on the oh, I'm getting it mixed up now with the parliaments of religion. We're parliaments of religion, but he's a self-appointed person on the Interplanetary Parliament.
Planetary Parliament. Yeah,
And we know that the prefects of Saturns appoint people to um,
he's
Interplanetary Parliament.
self-appointed.
So he says, I'm self-appointed. Note that, self-appointed. And so does that
Did he?
mean, and I don't know, but does that mean he's an aspect of a perfect of Saturn?
Wow.
And I don't know, but it's all very interesting how it all kind of, and then e- even if he isn't, like we obviously he's this amazingly great being, and he then took the time to come through Dr. King and give us these so easy to understand teachings and explaining it in really just a simple way, and these practices that the master Aetherius gave us. It just shows really this is kind of what they mean. They take 2 steps towards us.
Yeah.
All we have to do is pick something up and read it, right?
Yeah. That's a long way. I mean, he came a lot more than 2 steps all the way. But it was
Yeah,
probably an aspect of him. I mean, he was probably doing 101 other things as well.
exactly.
Because he was like the Jesus to Venus now. He was a
Yeah,
cosmic
I
master
mean,
to the masters.
Richard Lawrence actually gave a very good address several years ago, and he was saying to know more about who our master is, we can try to understand who his master was.
Yeah.
And he
But then
talked a lot about the master Aetherius. And I remember at the time I was in Michigan when this address came out, and I was helping out in the temple, and I was doing something with the plants, and Dave Capraro came in because he was preparing for the next day's service. And he started playing this. He was listening through the address, listening to it before he played it to the congregation. And I was doing some work in the temple at the time. And at some point, I kind of just stopped working and I was just sitting there listening. And afterwards, Dave came out and saw me and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be doing this work. And he couldn't help but laugh at me. But it is an interesting topic, who our master really was,
mm,
who his master really was. I think who our master really was is my favorite topic. I
because
would
he's
love
a
to, yeah.
because if he was the star pupil of an aspect of a lord, a supreme lord,
And he has been for a long time. Yeah.
it says that as well
He says that as well, and always has been. Yeah.
for many lives. So then he's much more than just a Martian.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also he says it took you an awful lot of karmic manipulation to
Yeah.
get you the man, was George King. Yeah.
So who took on the karma for that then? Like
I know.
Master
Yeah.
Aetherius or
Who knows? Yeah. And just looking at the way the Gotham masters, how they feel about our master,
mm,
it's very moving, I think.
yeah. Because there must not be many people like Doctor, because they're like, you wonder how much the Jedi are based on that
Yeah.
idea, like,
Yeah.
because they the greatest warriors, but they're capable of keeping the peace.
Yeah.
They go to extremes not to fight.
Mm, indeed.
It's
Yeah.
like once you're a master of something, you're like, was it Shivananda was a master of hypnosis, so he doesn't do it, he never, or was it Vivekananda? And yeah,
Yeah. Once you have a skill, you reject it.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that's,
Well, you've
yeah.
mastered it, so you don't use it. So
Yeah.
imagine to
Yeah.
being a master of war and then not is to preserve peace. Yeah,
Yeah. Very interesting.
yeah. That's really food for thought. That's
Mm, I agree.
feel like we can't top that. So
No.
unless you have any other,
No, that's
so,
us.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's so interesting to chat to you about because I live in the south of Italy. I don't have people to chat to about these things. So I really like to talk about them because it helps to raise my consciousness out of it.
Yeah, me
To,
too.
to imagine what the world is. To imagine like if we have to change the world in 50 years, yeah, like another
Yeah.
world. Jim, they got the teachings.
Yeah.
Like so, what does that world look like? What I mean, what are we aiming for? Are we what we're not all watching Netflix in the evening. We're not. What does it look like to live on Saturn or Venus or Mars?
Yeah.
What does a day to day look like? If we know that, we can aim for that.
That's right. Yeah. It is interesting. And then also to think about, like, one of the things that stood out to me about the master, like, um, they have a sense of humor still. So I'm sure they give service all the time, but they have fun with it.
Yeah,
And I think that is really important. It was I Brian Knieve actually said something recently about that in an address. He was talking about how Dr. King thought it was important to work hard, but also to have fun while doing it. And I think that's we won't know what it looks like to kind of be a cosmic master, but we can take some of their qualities and try to bring them into our lives.
Yeah.
And Brian certainly does that. In fact, last night we were at Operation Prayer Power, and I was the timekeeper, so I was counting the number of people who were in the room. And I got over to the side where Brian was, and he started saying 4, 12.
Ooh.
Prove me right. No, it was fine. I did another count, and it was a funny sort of thing, but it is important. We're at Operation Prayer Power. It's a serious thing, but we love to do it. So it's good to be good natured about it. And so I want to know what it's like to live on Mars, because we can see Mars, but obviously it's very different. But at least we can kind of understand their qualities and try to bring that to us.
Yeah, because they're looking at us. I mean, we're the bad boy of the.
Yeah.
There are not this many planets.
Misbehaving worms.
Well, there are not many planets in this solar system, and they're all very highly evolved and so
Yeah.
evolved we can't see them.
Yeah.
And what they must be thinking of us. I mean, but if we know what they look like, I mean, there's life on the planets, the book, but it doesn't. Maybe if there was more fiction about it, or a more day to day,
Yeah, well, Dr. King,
stories.
he did say that he thought it was good to kind of read sci-fi things and watch, because
Oh,
it
yeah?
kind of opens it kind of can give you better visualization about it. If I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, but it gets your kind of visualization going of what is possible.
Right.
And you want to do that in like a real positive way. Obviously, you don't want to watch a bunch of stuff about wars and stuff, but it is. He did recommend kind of using your imagination in that kind of way to see what is possible. Like reading about. I've never heard the transmissions about the Gotham mission, but the way that it gets described when you read about it in the newsletters, it's just amazing. Like, what is possible. It really is amazing.
Beyond science fiction.
Yeah. And also like the Heather Angel story. Have you read that one?
I haven't. No, is it the
Oh,
cats?
it's a
Aren't
good
they?
little booklet. I recommend it because Heather Angel is a cosmic being who kind of helped the Adepts, and she in her original form was, I guess, more cat-like, but she took on a human form for a while, and I recommend the Heather Angel story. It's on the web. It's a very good one.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was a good one, I thought, to kind of help our imaginations a bit as well.
Yeah, because it's all the elephant in the room. If you look at the top series on Netflix, so it's sci-fi, it's ghosts, it's the paranormal, it's
Yeah.
X-Files, it's people having superpowers, energy coming from the palms of their hands.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like
Flying.
Doctor Strange, right? In the Marvel world. See,
Yeah.
they're all kind of
Yeah. So somehow our consciousness is, because
it's in the mind belt.
it's in the mind belt. Yeah, like Jesus, way back when he couldn't, the first time around, he couldn't go on about UFOs and
Yeah.
living on other worlds when people can't even leave the ground yet. So
Yeah, well, even like how UFOs are described in the Bible.
floating clouds.
Yeah, clouds. Yeah, it's difficult to kind of say spacecraft when there's nothing like that in your vocabulary.
Stars moving through the sky, stopping over
Stars
staples.
moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
We know stars don't move.
Yeah.
That would be really bad if they did.
Yeah. Shooting stars, but then you couldn't really. Yeah, it's all hiding in plain sight, and I think it's all working because you try and understand like what the Great White Brotherhood, these spiritual masters, what plan they're doing, and I try and be positive and think that even like the technological advances, even though they cause a lot of hardship for people and that, and then they're playing into the hands of the dark forces, but it's still raising people's consciousness, in a way, getting them into airplanes,
Yeah.
and all this. If we all had to be going around looking for wood tonight to heat our houses, there's no way we can advance. We've got to be able to, on the other worlds, we have to build fantastic things, and so we do need people like Elon Musk, whoever, to go into space. We do have to. So I'm kind of more accepting of the materialistic, because I somehow think that the Great White Brotherhood might be is part of the plan to go for us to develop. Obviously, we should be doing it and more.
Yeah, and they
Right.
they lifted and before we went, they originally said we couldn't go to the moon, and then they lifted that ban. So it is important for us to explore. And I think it's really interesting that so many astronauts talk about UFOs.
Mm,
And I think it's really unfortunate that you have kind of Star Trek and Star Wars, but most of the time in movies and in entertainment, aliens are baddies and they're coming here to take us over. Like, how
mm.
many movies are there about aliens coming to Earth to take us over? I mean,
What do you
really
think?
obvious
What do you
that
think
that's not the
about
case.
because in the mainstream now is or in the alternative mainstream, say, with the UFOs is reptilians or it's Andromeda. I mean, no one talks about the planets near us. What's your experience of that, and what Dr. King
Well,
has
I
an ex?
think, I mean, I feel like it's a case of if I don't see it, I don't believe it. We know there's life in this solar system. Why wouldn't there be?
It's teeming with
But
life, yeah.
it's teeming, but just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And um, I think we'll get there. I think people are starting to kind of. I think even science is kind of coming on board that there's
Mm.
things around us that we can't
Dark
see. And
matter, dark energy, yeah.
exactly, and we know we can only see a certain amount of light on the light spectrum. So
Mm.
clearly, there's lots that we can't see. And the fact that some people have visions, other people don't. We have a camera that can take a picture of your aura, but you can't
Mm.
see it with your eye. So obviously, there's things that are. I think science is kind of catching up to that
But maybe there's
slowly.
gonna it's gonna cleave a bit society and everything because some are gonna
Yeah,
go up and some are gonna go down.
yeah, maybe
So, but you just wish everyone would just
go up, rise,
up,
like the
yeah,
Jupiterians say. Yeah,
yeah, rise.
it's not easy though.
No, no, I should definitely rise every day.
Me too. I struggle every day with it too. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you excuses because you're in the center and surrounded by love and light. So
I
yes, you
am
can't.
surrounded by a lot of light, and I could do a lot better.
All right, well, I think we'll wrap that up then.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Jack. This has been a lot of fun.
All right, it was a real pleasure. Thanks, Lisa.
Cheers, Jack.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, do you want to give me a quick tour of the
Oh,
center
yeah,
before I?
well, too. I'm just gonna unplug here, so my voice will change because 'cause I'm unplugging 'em.
Okay.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, this is the,
Oh, you're right in the church, in the
yeah, right in
main
the temple.
temple. Yeah.
So we've got behind me here, we've got Buddha, Babaji, and Jesus. Okay. And then we've got our shrine for the master over here. Okay. Oh, it's a glare. Let me try to get the
Oh,
glare
I
off.
see it. No, I see the Oh, yeah, I see the master up there. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
then
what's that
this,
underneath? What's the photo underneath?
oh, this is a picture. We had this up for Lazelle's memorial.
Ah, that changes regularly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then we've got the shrine for the adepts here.
Oh, wow.
And then we've got some nice windows. That's the master's house.
Okay.
And then we've got some more. I'll show you these in the back here. So this is the temple that you don't
That's so
know.
small.
Yeah.
You imagine it being so much bigger and
So we've got the sun, the galaxy, and the earth on
mhm.
this wall. And then a member made this. I think it's a beautiful wood carving.
Mm.
Oh, it's this way. There you go.
What does it say? Stand.
Choose well, stand fast, know God. And then our camera.
Okay.
And then we've got an award given to Dr. King. It says, to our beloved master, in recognition and appreciation of your supreme effort and sacrifice in the spiritual mission Operation Sunbeam,
Mhm.
and in advancing it to the super colossal state it has now attained as God's magic, we, the members of the Aetherius Society in America and Canada, salute, honor, and humbly thank you.
Wow.
And he's got 25 years of spiritual service plaque for the master.
Hmm.
And here's another one of his gifts. This is from the devoted staff members and loyal members throughout the world. And this is a picture of the master. It says, Our bells tolled and you appeared. Thank you for staying with us these 75 years. And this is a presented to Dr. George King, founder president of the Aetherius Society, with deepest gratitude for the mystical initiation we received during the performance of Operation Carmelite transmission tapes.
Mm.
So that was a gift. And then we've got all of our spiritual monuments over here. You go.
Oh.
And then we've got the similar one you got right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks so much, Jack. I really appreciated this.
No worries. It's been great. Thanks so much. I hope we can chat again in the future when you've done
Yeah.
some more, when you've written your first book and you need to
Okay. Yeah, sure.
promote it.
Be waiting a long time, but yeah, it sounds good.
Well, with
Thanks, Jack.
with so much truth, I don't think you see how you can fail to be inspired.
Thank you. See you.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye bye.